Last week, I posted a video that was titled, "Is Pursuing Financial Freedom a Sin?" And now that we pretty much understand that no, it's not necessarily a sin, but the warnings and the traps of the love of money, and you have to go about it with the right mindset out of obedience to God and all of these different things. If you get past that point, you then have to ask yourself, can God even trust you with wealth in the first place? Since we know that building wealth doesn't come from a place of I'm going to store up as much as I can for myself. I'm going to put my security in money, and the more money I have, the better off I'm going to be, the less I have to worry, etc. All these different things. We have to take that mindset from owner and submit it to God, knowing that God owns all things, including our money, and gives us the ability to produce wealth. And we come down as a manager and a steward of what he entrusts us. And the question that you really have to ask yourself is, as a manager, as a steward, how are you stewarding the money that God already placed in your life? If you're making X amount per month, be completely honest. Like, should God even trust you with more? Ultimately, he has the power to say whether or not you're going to get more. But what I'm reading in the Bible is God will often give more to the man that he can trust and take away from the man who was dishonest with what he already had. And I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. A couple months ago, I was asking myself the same question, and the answer was just straight up no. Like, I would take a look at the money that I was actually making, and even though it wasn't a whole lot, I still wasn't budgeting it correctly. If I have X amount coming in, is all of that going out every single month? Am I even stewarding it properly? Am I taking it into obedience, making sure that I'm being generous with it, making sure that I'm saving and investing wisely, providing for my family, not just today, but what about tomorrow? And I realized that no, God should not trust me with anything more than what he's already given me. And that was a question that I had to be honest with myself with. So I just ask that you would do that for yourself. And if the answer is no, what can we do to become the man that God can trust with wealth? What can we do to become the man that is obedient in every area, including finances? Luke 16:10 pretty much sums it up. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? Another verse in the Bible comes from the parable of the bags of gold in Matthew 25, verse 14. Jesus is talking and he's telling this parable, and it says, again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one, he gave 5 bags of gold. To another, he gave 2 bags. And to another, 1 bag. Each according to his ability. He left and he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once, put his money to work, and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 bags more. But the man who had received the 1 bag, who obviously had the least ability, went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. He said, Master, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See that I have gained 5 more. His master replied, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Same thing happens with the guy that had 2 bags. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. And then it comes down to that man who had the least ability, who was given just 1 bag and couldn't even make any more just off of one. Instead, he was afraid. And he said, Master, I knew that you were a hard man. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. Here you go. This is what belongs to you. And he gave back the 1 bag that he was given. The master replied, You wicked and lazy servant. Then he goes on and he took the bag of gold from the man who only had one and gave it to the one who had the most. He took from the one that had only 1 bag and gave it to the guy who had 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So what we're seeing is whenever I'm reading these verses, it's like, first of all, you have to look at the principle. What I've learned, it's not just about the surface level stuff, obviously. So it's not only about money, but it absolutely should be applied to money as well, because it's the principle of obedience stewardship and taking what you have been given and going out and making more, being resourceful. And so in other areas that we could apply that is with our faith. Like God gives us our base level of understanding. What are we going to do with that? Are we just going to sit on our hands and never grow towards Jesus and sanctification and everything like that? Or are we just going to stay stagnant, being lazy servants of God, never doing anything, never furthering our faith, never going and doing good works that God prepared for us in advance to do? All of these different things. So it comes down to the principle of obedience in all areas of your life. And yes, in finances too. 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, "Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful." So it's almost like God is going to see, okay, this is the hand of cards you were dealt in life. Maybe you don't have the richest parents or whatever. Maybe your parents weren't even Christian. They didn't raise you up right with good morals and good principles to live by and good characteristics. But you have been exposed to the Bible. You have been exposed to all this opportunity. What are you going to go and do with it? How are you actually going to be as a man? That's what I'm getting whenever I'm reading these verses. And so it kind of goes against like living life, making excuses. You kind of just have to understand that everybody is dealt a different hand of cards in life. And God's waiting, looking at you, observing, saying, okay, how are you going to steward all the opportunities that I've given you already? How are you going to manage the little bit of money that you do have so that, like Luke 16:10 said, you can be trusted with more? And I think way too many people, especially Christians, like they'll be praying for this blessing of money for God to increase the amount of money they're making or whatever, but not be willing to turn that around, look at yourself and say, am I a man that God can even trust with more money? That's the question I had to ask myself. And like I said, I was embarrassed to know that the answer was no. God should not trust me with more than what I already have. Because look at how I'm handling, what I do have. Am I going out and making more with it? Am I actually saving and investing for the future? Am I actually being generous with this little amount that I do have? Because generosity is not an amount, it's your heart posture. And as I started like making this picture of the man that I should be under Christ, I was looking back at my life and realizing every time I tried to go out and make more money, pursue a different business, I was just hopping around getting shiny object syndrome, like not staying obedient to one opportunity, but constantly looking for the next thing that's going to help me to get rich. And I just try to apply this to business because like in my life, I have attempted so many different business models. I had a lawn care business for almost 5 years. I had two different clothing brands. I've done Amazon FBA, Amazon influencer, TikTok shop, flipping stuff like couches and furniture on Facebook Marketplace. And I was constantly seeking the business model as this thing I put on the pedestal as the thing that would get me rich. And I know there's a lot of young guys out there who are experiencing this and you're just trying to find that one thing that's going to make you all the money. But the news flash is it's not about the business model. It's not about the thing that you're doing as much as it is about who you are becoming. Pretty much all business models have the opportunity to work. It's more about consistently sticking to one thing over time, growing your skill set, taking what God has entrusted with you, growing in that, and producing an outcome that turns out better than what you were given. And so I had to, again, be brutally honest with myself. And looking back, it's like kind of embarrassing because I just wanted to get rich quick. And I know how many young men struggle with this. So that's why I'm sharing all of this. And the Bible talks about this. Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will make it grow. And I did a little bit of research on like the original meaning of that word, like hastily, or whenever it says like make haste in the Bible. And essentially, it's like a narrow-minded way of approaching money. Like you're going to do whatever it takes to get that money, and it doesn't matter what you sacrifice in the process. It's to insist on getting rich, to block out everything besides your one goal of pursuing money. And let me be honest, whenever you do that as a Christian, that means that you are putting money as the idol in your life. You're saying money is above God, and I don't care what I have to sacrifice, even if it's my faith, to get money or to get the certain level of wealth that I'm pursuing. That is where it becomes completely wrong. And that's whenever we see in 1 Timothy 6:10, the love of money is the root of all evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So you have to remain a manager and a steward of what God has entrusted to you instead of flipping the switch and getting too ahead of yourself and becoming an owner and starting to act like I'm going to go and produce this wealth for me. But remember, like Deuteronomy 8:18 says, you might say that it's been by your strength and your power that you've produced this wealth for yourself. But remember the Lord your God, for he is the one that gives you the ability to produce wealth in the first place. So if you're dealing with an ego problem, saying that you're going to go out and get this money and you're not even realizing that you're sacrificing your faith in the process, I believe that that is exactly how you know that money is the idol in your life. And to a man like that, why would God be able to trust you with more money or more wealth than you already have if you can't even be faithful in the little things? So instead of trying to constantly bounce around, trying to find the thing, the business model, or hoping and longing and insisting on a raise at your job, instead of focusing so much on that aspect, focus on becoming the man who is skillful in his work, who is obedient to God and faithful and a great steward with what he already has so that God can actually come in. And whenever he does bless you, it doesn't ruin your life. Like Dave Ramsey said one time, he was talking to his son whenever he first turned 16, about to drive a car for the first time. And the kid's like, all right, dad, can I get a Corvette? And Dave Ramsey's like, no, you're not going to get a Corvette. Money aside, I'm not going to give you something that you can't handle. I've seen you drive. If I put you behind this super powerful engine, you're going to go and you're going to wreck your life. In the same way, why would God place something in our life that has so much power, like a 16-year-old driving the sports car, that's just going to set yourself up for failure because you cannot be trusted with that thing. You cannot be trusted with the wealth yet. You see what I mean? And so while obviously God is sovereign, God is in control, that's kind of the whole point of this. So it's not just about principle, like, okay, God, I can be trusted. Where's my money? Like, come on, give the money to me. That's not it either. That's pride. You're saying you deserve that money. It's not about, okay, what does the Bible say about money or the man I need to be? Okay, let me hurry up and go be that man so God can bless me. Again, even that pursuit is coming at it from the wrong angle. It has to be the heart posture to serve God with everything in your life, including your finances, and be obedient to his word and provide for your family, like 1 Timothy 5:8, and leave an inheritance to your children's children, and be generous on every occasion, and do good works in every area of life, including your actual career, so that God can get the glory. It's not about yourself. Like, that is the whole misconception that Christians get with money. And when it comes to building wealth, in my opinion, is they're like, okay, this is the goal. I want to pursue wealth. So what do I need to extract from the Bible so that I can hurry up and apply that to my life and be right with God over here? But really, my main focus is the money. That means that money is an idol in your life. And until you put money on the backside and you put God first, why would you ever be entrusted with any sort of level of wealth? I mean, I'm just trying to look at it from that perspective, not even the perspective of, should you get the money, in terms of, is it the right thing to do? I've already established that in my own heart, like with me and God, with scripture, and I made videos on that. I think that for the majority of Christian men, yeah, you're called to go out and produce an income and build this level of wealth and pursue financial freedom if you are submitted to God's authority, God's will in your life, and if you're doing it from the role of manager and steward in your life, not owner. And so what I have learned is that it's the simplest concept. If you do not have God, you have nothing. It doesn't matter if you're making $1 million a month. If you do not have God, you have nothing. Just like Paul said in Philippians, he said, I have learned the secret in life of how to be content. And it says, I can be content in all circumstances, whether well-fed or hungry, whether rich or poor. Why? Because he can do all things through Christ who gives him strength in order to do that. And so it's like, I've had months where I've made $2,000 consistently. And, that's a very low amount for my bills. I have a wife and a kid, the area that I live in, like living expenses, everything like that. So I've made $2,000 a month, and I've had multiple months where I've made $18,000 and $20,000 months. And I can firmly tell you that I've come to the conclusion that it doesn't matter how much money I ever make in life, whether I never make over $4,000 a month ever again, and I'm quote unquote average household income in America, or if I go and I start making $100,000 a month for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter if I don't have Christ in my heart. Because like it says in Mark 8:36, for what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? Proverbs 28:20 says, a faithful person will be richly blessed, but one eager to get rich will not go unpunished. Eager to get rich, insisting that you need to get rich regardless of whatever you sacrifice in the process. To me, that means that money is an idol in your life, so plainly. To me, that means you have to submit yourself to God, to God's authority in your life, and start operating out of a manager and a steward of money, not an owner. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section and be honest. Are you in a point in your life where are you the type of man that God can trust with more? Or do you have to really look at yourself and say, okay, I need to start living my life according to God's word and being obedient in the other areas before I think that he can entrust me with worldly wealth?